So one day, I was scrolling through YouTube videos when I came across one of Alicia Malone's videos. For those of you who don't know, Alicia Malone's an indie film fan best known for her collaborations with Screen Junkies and Scott Mantz. In her video, she was sharing her thoughts on the movie Suicide Squad, though in the beginning she was talking about a documentary she saw called Hitchcock Truffaut. The documentary is about a week-long interview that was conducted in the mid-60s between filmmakers Francois Truffaut and Alfred Hitchcock at the latter's offices at Universal, in which the two discussed movies together. This later became the inspiration of a book that Truffaut published a few years later, which then became the inspiration for the documentary itself. And whilst talking about the documentary, Alicia brought up something that, well, led to the creation of this video, and here it is.
But he said something really interesting, and it was a quote which made me get off my couch and write it down because it's something I feel about movies today. He said, "Can any director be an artist within the confines of Hollywood?"
As I thought about what Alicia said, I began to realise that she had a point from what Hitchcock said. From past and most recent experiences, we've all seen what can happen when a filmmaker and a studio he or she works for fall out over creative differences while trying to work together on a production. So, can a filmmaker become an artist within Hollywood? Now, making a film isn't an easy task, I know. You've got a ton of ideas bouncing off one another, scenes that need to be filmed with little to no error, problems that are going to arise during production, and some improvisation if what you had planned originally doesn't end up working. Just to name a few.
Make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan.
Though one of the major problems nowadays seems to be the studios. For some reason, studios feel the need to get more involved with production rather than let the filmmakers do their jobs. Films like Rogue One, Suicide Squad, Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, yes, 2 Spider-Man movies part of completely separate franchises suffered from studio interference. And it's not just the blockbusters either. Biopics, adaptations, hell, even animated movies have suffered because of studio meddling. But why? Why is this a fire that keeps needing to be put out? Why is it a mistake that seems to repeat over and over again like a scratched record? Well, perhaps we should take a look at one of the films that suffered from this and see for ourselves. I did a little bit of research and, well... Nowadays, Josh Trank's Fantastic Four is one of the first examples that pops up when we think about this topic, and with the reports on set about what went down, it's no surprise why. Hell, even Mads Mikkelsen walked out of an audition for it. Now, according to several articles and videos that I found online, it was said that Fox and Josh Trank agreed on having 3 major action scenes in the movie, but at the last second, Fox went back on the idea and had Trank remove them immediately.
I've got a source who was fairly close to the production of this film, who had told me that the movie that Josh Trank and Fox had agreed on making included 3 really big action set pieces. That was all agreed upon. It was a part of the flow of the movie. And a movie is like a puzzle. You have all the pieces in place. You start messing with pieces, suddenly the whole puzzle can look out of whack. And they had agreed on this vision for a film and whatever. And then days before production began, Fox came in and made him pull 3 main action sequences out of the film.
And that wasn't the end of it. Fox also began making last-minute changes and even cut down the production budget from what Trank was originally promised. This really didn't do any favors for Trank, as it was also reported that the guy was either late to set, high on drugs, or didn't even show up at all, was distant from his co-workers and often had rows with the cast, and even went as far as to trash the room he was staying in at Baton Rouge. And it wasn't just the director the movie took a toll on, it affected the cast as well. If you watch any of the promotional interviews for the film, you can tell that the experience was a nightmare for them.
Would you rather work with 20 angry PAs or 1 angry director?
20
angry PAs. Really?
Yeah. So they don't have much
it's like, all right.
power, you know? The director you're kind of under his...
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Even star Kate Mara took some shots of the film after its release.
Hero vibe. You guys all have like the Marvel Universe connection.
Mine was the biggest success. I just want to put it out there.
Yeah. Humble pie.
Listen,
I didn't see it.
Neither did the rest of the world.
You didn't see it?
Anyway.
Things got so bad that after filming wrapped up, Fox immediately fired Josh Trank from the project and took over the rest of the production, having to rewrite and reshoot the ending, going as far as to even locking out Trank from editing. And even hiring an Oscar-winning special effects guy, who was then fired himself later on without telling Trank.
I was also told that the ending of the film was not even Josh Trank's, and at some point, all of us have heard the rumors and read the rumors, that at some point they hijacked the editing bay from him to the point where the edit of the film was done and made without of her. Yesterday, both Christian and I spoke with another source. This is a second source that confirmed everything we had heard from my first source, that the studio had come in, taken out big set pieces, taken over the third act of the film, taken over the edit bay of the movie, and essentially put out a film that was not the film that they had originally sat down to make. Now, I feel confident enough. I'm the guy who says, don't take this to the bank. I feel confident enough at this place that I've heard this from enough places, enough reputable places, to tell you this, that the film that we saw in Fantastic Four was not the film they were supposed to make. It was not the film that Josh Trank made.
And then after the film was complete and preparing for its premiere, Josh Trank posted a tweet pretty much disowning his own movie the day before its worldwide release. Sure, he took it down moments later, but by then it had already been caught up by the media. And it was here that the movie was pretty much dead in the water. So, after all that, it seems that we should just let the creative minds do their thing, right? Well, yes, and also no. Because while I agree that if a filmmaker has a vision, you should let them bring it to life, there have also been some instances where the creative minds have had too much control. Batman Returns, Star Trek The Motion Picture, every live-action Transformers movie, and of course Star Wars 1, 2, and 3. Now, before we get into those three, let's do a bit of history. I'm also going to be honest that research for this was extremely difficult, so I may not have a lot to back up what I'm saying, but I'm going to do my best. Back when Lucas was making A New Hope, or just Star Wars as it was known at the time, he faced a ton of problems along the way, from multiple studios passing on the project, which he was somewhat happy with on some occasions, animatronics breaking down, costumes being a bit of a struggle to work with, weather problems, Fox threatening to shut down production, and Lucas even getting diagnosed with hypertension and exhaustion. But thanks to a lot of help from Gary Kurtz, Ralph McQuarrie, John Williams, ILM and others, Star Wars turned out to be a phenomenal success, and paved the way for the next two installments. Though despite that, Lucas admitted that he was unhappy with some of the effects not being on par with his vision. Then, after his divorce in the late 80s, he was pretty much done with the franchise. But after seeing the advancements with CGI and the popularity with Dark Horse's Star Wars comic series and the Thrawn trilogy, Lucas was inspired to return. So, when The Phantom Menace was announced along with episodes 2 and 3, there was a lot of hype. But when the films were finally released, reception was less than spectacular. For the most part. The writing was poor, the acting for the most part was wooden, and there was an over-reliance on CGI. So, where did everything go wrong? For starters, Episode 1 was released in 1999. The last film Lucas directed before that was the original Star Wars in 1977. So, this would have been the first film he'd be directing in over 20 years. That's a long time to be away from something for so long. However, in addition to the fact that Lucas was directing all three movies, he was also the sole writer, with Jonathan Helms helping out a little on Attack of the Clones, and the producer. Now, during the time gap, though he didn't direct any movies, he did produce and co-write a bunch of them. Labyrinth, the Indiana Jones series, and even Jurassic Park and Apocalypse Now. So he definitely had more experience in those fields, which makes it all the more shocking when you watch episodes 1 through 3 and see the finished films on screen. Not to mention the horrendous dialogue.
I don't like sand. It's coarse, and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
And that's another thing, there are hardly any sets or environments for the actors to interact with. Most of the scenes were shot on green or blue screens with a couple of sets made.
When I was walking around in Camino, George showed him concept paintings of, okay, now you're walking down a hallway and you're looking and you're seeing the cloning facilities, but there was nothing for him to see.
Actors and directors need a world to interact with, because if they don't, they're not going to have anything to be invested with. And you need the sets to do that, because if you don't, the director isn't going to be able to give the actors any good direction. And as a result, the actors are going to deliver bland performances. Now, I tried to get some behind the scenes stuff on the sets, and was actually blown away by how many miniature sets they made for filming, which made me feel a bit confused at first. Because of everything that I'd heard over the years, this seemed rather contradictory about the overuse of CGI. However, I then found some deleted scenes from Attack of the Clones and saw this. What you see here is an unfinished rendering of the Jedi Archives, which confirms a sign of over-reliance on CGI, which is left me to believe that either Lucas had the backgrounds and environments completely computer generated, or the miniatures were filmed using a camera and then inserted into the movie during post-production. Now, it would have been understandable that no one stepped in during the production of The Phantom Menace, because, no one believed he could do anything wrong at the time. But by the time the other two movies went into production, it makes you question why no one said anything to Lucas about certain aspects of the movies. And hell, sometimes the conflict can come from two creative minds clashing with one another. most recently with the Han Solo spin-off with Phil Lord, Chris Miller and Lawrence Kasdan, and long ago with Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick, best known for 2001, Full Metal Jacket and Dr. Strangelove, is best known for having full control of his projects down to every last detail. Directing, writing, producing, cinematography, editing, pretty much everything. Because of this, he's faced some on-set conflicts with production, from the issues he faced while making Spartacus in the late 50s, to the point where he went as far as to move to England and even disown his own movie, to probably his most famous conflicts of over Stephen King on the adaptation of the latter's novel, The Shining. While the movie itself was revolutionary, it's no secret that Stephen King outright hates Kubrick's version of his novel, claiming that the complex characters he wrote were reduced to stereotypes, with Jack having no compassion or development, and Wendy being represented in a misogynistic manner.
Shelley Duvall as Wendy is really one of the most misogynistic characters ever put on film. She's basically just there to scream and be stupid, and that's not the woman that I wrote about.
Now, as to where I stand on this, while I like the Stanley Kubrick film, I do side on Stephen King that it's not a faithful adaptation of his book. Now, I don't view it in the same way as an adaptation like Jim Carrey's The Mask or X-Men, as those are very different situations. I view it in the same way as when Mary Poppins was being adapted by Disney. The book meant a lot to author P.L. Travers, as Mary Poppins was inspired by moments in her life. And the same applies to her King, as Jack's story arc in the book reflects how he struggled with alcoholism once before, so it's evident that King holds the story close to his heart. However, it seemed that Kubrick also made some wise choices in the changes to the novel. If you watch the miniseries, you'll notice that there are some improvements, Jack and Wendy's characterizations for example, but you'll also notice that there are some really questionable choices. And yeah, I'll admit the ending's a little corny, and it's really similar to the last 15 minutes of a film that I saw recently called The Mountain Between Us. Now, these work in a novel as your imagination can fill in the gaps, but not so much in an adaptation. So, what does this mean exactly? It seems that, no matter what people do on some occasions, things always tend to fall apart. Well, I'd say that's what happens when you try to make a film. Filmmaking is a tough challenge. Everyone has a specific vision they want to bring to life. However, it doesn't mean that one side's going to be definitively right. Hell, even some of the greatest films that ever made have problems. If you're going to make a great film, the collaborators all need to be on the same page to make the best final product. So creators, feel free to let others contribute and share ideas with you. And studios, don't interfere too much and just let the directors do their job. So until next time, I'm Aaron, signing out.